But I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. In Canada, if you have major surgery and you end up in the hospital, anyone know what the bill is there? Zero. Now, we don't talk about it in Congress. We don't talk about it on TV. The bill is zero. You go to any doctor you want. The bill is zero. They're spending half as much per capita on healthcare as we do. They live longer than we do. Now, how is that? The answer is not complicated. The function of the American healthcare system is not to provide quality care to everybody. The function is to make huge profits for the insurance companies. And that is exactly what is happening. Healthcare should not be a commodity. It's a human right. And the day will come with your support, sooner than later, when we will finally have health care for every man, woman, and child without any out-of-pocket expense. But it's not just health care. It is the very high cost of prescription drugs. There have been developments in recent years which are extraordinary and very, very positive. There are drugs that are on the market today that are saving lives that we have never seen before. Really great breakthroughs. Problem is that the cost of prescription drugs in America is outrageously high, and we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Now, why is that? Every other country on earth says to the drug companies, hey, come on in, we're delighted that you have a new drug, let us sit down and negotiate a reasonable price. That's what every country on earth does. What we have done until very recently, we're making some progress. What we have done is, hey, you can charge us any price you want. You want to double prices tomorrow? Not a problem. And the result of that is not only do we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, but we are paying in some cases 10 times more than other countries for the same exact product. I'll never forget, a couple of years ago, I took a trip from Detroit, Michigan, into Windsor, Ontario, with people who were dealing with diabetes. And we went into Windsor, we went into a small drugstore, we bought the exact same insulin product that they were getting in the United States. You know what the differential was? They paid 1/10 the price that was being paid here in the United States. And it's not just insulin. And by the way, we're making some progress in lowering the price of insulin. We're making some progress in lowering the price of asthma inhalers. So you may ask, well, how does it happen that we are so different than other countries in terms of our pricing system? I'll tell you what it is. It has to do with 1,800 well-paid lobbyists, 1,800 in Washington for 535 members of Congress. It has to do with the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign contributions that these guys make. Which takes me to another issue. And not only is the economy rigged such that the people on top are doing phenomenally well while working people are struggling, we have to be honest and understand that we have a corrupt campaign finance system.
Yes. Yes.
I think all over the country, people are worried about Trump and his friends' effort to undermine American democracy, deny that Biden won the election, to try to make it harder for people of color or low-income people or young people to vote. And that is a very, very serious threat. But there is another threat that is equally serious. And that is as a result of the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. It is now perfectly legal for billionaires to spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to defeat the candidates they don't like and support the candidates they want. Now, when I grew up, what democracy was supposed to be about is a clash of ideas. You disagree with me, that's called American democracy. That's great. Let's debate the issues. You win, I win. That's what it's about. What democracy is not about is billionaires buying elections. That's called oligarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be very frank in telling you that unless we change this broken and corrupt campaign finance system, which allows big money interests to buy and sell politicians, we're never going to be able to bring about the changes that working people need in this country. So, all right, that is some of the bad news. Let me give you some very good news. Longer term, we're going back a little bit, and we should not take these things for granted because they didn't happen by accident. When I was growing up a couple of years ago, America was a country where in a number of states, you know, if you were black, you couldn't even drink out of a water fountain, you couldn't even sit in the front of a bus.
Mm-hmm.
While racism certainly still exists in America, we've got to continue our efforts to end racism. We have made enormous progress over the last many years to take on that form of bigotry. We should be proud of that and not underestimate what we have accomplished. Not so many years ago, a few decades ago, there were 2 women out of 100 members of the United States Senate. 98 men, 2 women. 30, 40 years ago, the idea of a woman serving in the U.S. military, being a police officer, the idea of a woman being a carpenter or a welder, the idea of women being in medical school, these were strange ideas. You're laughing, but that was the world. And when I was mayor of Burlington, Vermont in the 1980s, there were 0 women on the police department. And that has fundamentally changed. And right now, while we are fighting to make sure that women will continue to control their own bodies, we have come a long way in this country, and we should be damn proud of that, of fighting against sexism. Not so many years ago, if somebody was gay, they kept that to themselves. They stayed in the closet. But as a result of the struggle of many people in the gay community and elsewhere, most people in America today understand that every American has the right to love whomever they want to love, regardless of their gender. And that is no small thing. So what I'm telling you is we have improved life in America. We have combated racism, sexism, homophobia in very significant ways. Still have a long way to go, but real change has taken place. We should be very proud of what we have accomplished, and with that understanding, we know that we can bring about changes in other areas. All right? Change is not impossible, but it doesn't happen unless we stand up and fight for that change. And I'll tell you something that is going on right now that I think is enormously important and very, very positive. And that is we are seeing the rejuvenation of the trade union movement in America in a way we have not seen for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen the United Auto Workers, the UAW, take on the greed of the automakers and get a damn good contract for their workers. We've seen them go into the South and for the first time organize an auto plant in the South. We're seeing young people all over this country organizing at Starbucks. And what we are hearing is they are making progress in developing a national contract. We're seeing doctors and nurses standing up and fighting for decent wages and benefits. We're seeing graduate students on campuses organizing successfully. Now, why is that important? It's important for two basic reasons. Number one is if you have a union, you're going to be able to sit down, negotiate a contract for decent wages, decent benefits, decent working conditions. Unionized workers make a lot more money than non-union workers. You have dignity on the job because if somebody is treating you unfairly, you have recourse. But I will tell you the even more important reason as to why we have to grow the trade union movement. When we take on the billionaire class, we are taking on people with unimaginable wealth and power. I deal with these guys every day. You know, for them, spending $50 million is like you going out for a cup of coffee. It doesn't matter. They have endless amounts of money. How do we take these guys on? How do we get real campaign finance reform in America? How do we make sure that women have a right to control their own bodies? How do we raise the minimum wage to a living wage? How do we make sure that health care is a human right, that we lower the cost of prescription drugs, that instead of spending $1 trillion a year on the military-industrial complex, we spend it on our kids and the homeless? How do you do all that? Well, in every single instance, we are taking on very powerful special interests. They got the money. They control the media to a large degree. What do we have? What do we have? We don't have any money. Our people, you know, I ran for president, we got $27 contributions. They contribute $50 million to their candidates. All right, they got the money. But what do we have? We have the people. And I want you all to know that. On all of our issues, you go out and you talk to your Republican friends, and you say, do you think we should lower the cost of prescription drugs? Damn right. Do you think we should raise the minimum wage? Yeah, I do. I have my kids working for starvation wages. The climate has changed while I'm a farmer, and drought is impacting my output, my crop output. On issue after issue, the American people are with us. One of the issues we're fighting for right now is to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision. You know what the polling is on that? Only 90% of the American people support us. And the other 10% work for the insurance companies. All right? So on all of those issues, how can you be against making sure that all of our little kids have good quality child care? Who's against that? You understand that 0 through 5, most important years of development, our young children deserve the right to have quality child care, and their parents deserve the right to know that so they go out and work. Who can argue against the fact that if we are going to succeed successfully economically as a nation, we've got to have the best educated workforce? So I talk to young people all the time. I talk to young people going to medical school. You know what? We need in America more doctors, more nurses, more dentists, more pharmacists, more mental health counselors. Right. We need all of those. And yet to go to medical school, you come out, you know what the debt is? $500,000 for some of these guys. Dental school, $400,000. Nurses, $50,000. It is not a radical idea, but a common sense idea. That if we want a workforce that can make this country work, that can take care of our kids and all of us, we got to have tuition-free public colleges and universities. But it's not only, there are a lot of people in America, a lot of young people, who are not into academics. They are good with their hands. We desperately need those young people. Tell you a story. One of the things that was not talked about last night enough. is Congress passed the largest infrastructure bill in the history of this country. We have our roads, our bridges, our water systems, our wastewater plants are crumbling. And we need workers to rebuild them. So we put in a huge amount of money. In my state of Vermont, a small state, got $2 billion to rebuild our infrastructure. We do not have enough skilled workers to do the work. So right now, what we have got to do, what we're working on, is making sure that any young person who wants to become a construction worker or electrician or welder, they will be able to go and get the training they need without spending a nickel, because we desperately need those people. By the way, for better or worse, if you're a plumber in Vermont, you probably make more money than somebody who graduated college right now. All right? So where are we? We are in a moment in history which I consider to be a pivotal moment. I want to take you on a brief tour through history. I'm not a historian, but I was thinking about this a little bit. You think back to the 1770s. We'll study this stuff in high school and elementary school. And very brave people decided to break away from their mother country, from England, from the king, the monarchy, put their lives on the line, and they created the United States of America. And they wrote things like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And if you read them today, being written in the 1700s, they are pretty damn good documents. That was a pivotal moment in American history. We owe a lot to those, our founding fathers, if you like. And then you go back to the 1860s and the struggle over slavery. And in my state, I suspect in Wisconsin as well, if you go to the small towns, and we're mostly a small town state, usually on the town green, there'll be a monument. And the monument will have the names, literally, of those young men who died in that town trying to abolish slavery. And the numbers are astounding. Some small towns, a few hundred people. There's a lot of names of kids who went off somewhere and died to abolish slavery. That was a pivotal moment in American history. 600,000 Americans died in that Civil War. And then you think about, what happened in the 1930s. In the 1930s, as you know, our grandparents went through the Great Depression. And that meant 25% of our people were unemployed, and there weren't any kind of social programs. That people lived in absolute misery and desperation. And politically, what happened is in 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president, and he basically transformed the role of the federal government in addressing the needs of working people. He said, we're not going to stand back. We're not going to turn our backs on the suffering. We're going to do our best to give people jobs, to give people the help that they need. That was the beginning of the transformation of the federal government. That was a big deal. Pivotal moment in American history. And then you think back in December of 1941, the United States was attacked in Pearl Harbor. People don't really know this. But when Japan attacked the United States, we were really unprepared militarily to fight a war on two fronts. We really were. And what happened, unbelievably, really is, in 2.5 years, by 1943, we had converted our factories from making cars into making tanks to making planes. And in 2.5 years, we were already on the verge to win that war, both in the East in Japan and in Germany. And the war was won in 1945. All of those moments were difficult moments. And I suspect that people back then, Civil War, Revolutionary War period, Depression, World War II, they would say, we can't do it. How do you fight a war on two fronts against really powerful enemies like Germany and Japan? How do you abolish an institution like slavery, which has existed forever? How do you do those things? We did. So I guess I want to end on this note. I would be kidding you and lying to you if I did not tell you that these are very difficult times. We are worried about climate change. We're worried about oligarchy. We're worried about the threats against our democracy. We're worried about an economy which favors the billionaire class over working people. We're worried about a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections. We're worried about a mental health crisis in America, impacting on young people and everybody else. These are real issues. Anyone who tells you they're not real is not telling you the truth. But I end with this note, that I believe from the bottom of my heart that if we stand together, if we do not allow Trump and his friends and demagogues to divide us up based on the color of our skin or our sexual orientation or where we were born, if we stand together, we have common interests that will bring us the success that we need. So the challenge of our moment is, first of all, not to fall into despair. Look, I have talked, I get around the country, I get around Vermont, I talk to a lot of people and say, Bernie, I can't even watch the damn TV anymore. It is so discouraging. You got wars going on in Gaza and Ukraine, it's just terrible. You know, I can't afford my health, can't afford my prescription drugs, government's not doing the damn thing to me. I understand it. But what I hope you keep in your hearts is the understanding that this country has gone through equally difficult times, maybe even worse times in the past. And if we keep our eyes on the prize, which to my mind is it's what Lincoln talked about at Gettysburg. What did he talk about? He said, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. That's all we're talking about. If we keep our eyes on the prize and not get into bickering, and not getting into bigotry and divisiveness, if we do that, I am absolutely confident that as a nation, we will come out of where we are today better and stronger than we are. Thank you all very much for being here.